Darklings! So the other day I had someone ask about the earrings I'm currently wearing and how I made them. And so that kind of prompted a whole, well, what about all the DIY experiment jewelry I've done? Admittedly, almost everything that I've done is made out of materials you can get from Michaels. Just a heads up, I live there, I might as well. They have a lot of my money. So these are made out of plastic snowbells I got from Michaels. That it's two little strings of it wrapped up with black thread, a little eyelet super glued into the top of it so I could hook something to it, and then using a jump ring, a little tiny vial added to the bottom. Something that's not overly complicated and just wondering what I can do with materials I happen to have. So most of the jewelry that I've made that's in this video is like that. And not all of it is planned, some of it is just kind of whatever I could come up with. So for example, at Michael's you can get these little packs of chandelier earring bits. And so with the chandelier earring bits, I ended up making a necklace that looks rather like this. And so it's just taking a crystal, taking some beads, it's just jump rings and chain, and making something that looks interesting. Going with that as well, and actually using the chandelier earring bits for earrings, I also have these, which are just longer because there's just more jump rings in them. So I call these my Persephone earrings that are all tangled up in the video. So there's those. Some other really simple stuff is a vial filled with red brick dust, and the cork is just super glued onto the rest of it to make sure it doesn't accidentally fall off, because I totally had that happen before. I don't like it. Also with the chandelier earring bits, little crescent moon bead with some wire wrapped crystals. And the crystals, you can get them on strings at Michael's. I just spent time wrapping with wire so that they'd have a loop at the top so I could use them for jewelry a little more easily. These were kind of a failed experiment. I don't really wear them because they don't work as well as I was planning, which is these little painted pomegranate openings that I did on watercolor paper, glued them into this metal fitting, put resin on top, and then wrapped wire around through holes on the sides so on the top and bottom I could loop things. They only sort of work. They're not that great. They mostly just drive me nuts, so I don't wear them, because not all of these turn out as well as I would have hoped. I was really fond of these for a while. These are bobcat jaws, like actual ones that I got from a cruelty-free bone shop place in Portland when visiting a friend. And taking an awl, I very carefully etched a hole out at the top part of the jaw here and put some wire through it so that I could get some rings through it and dangle it from my ears. I just don't wear them that much because they're kind of constantly in my way. They kind of tickle me funny under the jaw, and so I just don't wear them as much as I used to, but there was a period of time where I wore them a lot. Something I ended up doing a lot of semi-recently were watercolor portrait cameos. I did a Lestat one. I liked it so much I made a couple more of my own. And so this was done in watercolor on watercolor paper and then cut out and then glued to a cardstock back, which was then glued onto this metal setting, and then had resin poured over the top of it to keep it protected, and then using jump rings added a couple of beads, a little mirror, and some chain. So something that's not overly difficult to do. You can totally make it on your own using photographs if you don't want to paint. Makes it very simple. A technique that I used to use when it came to the portrait cameos were using polymer clay slabs. I don't really use it as much anymore because it's kind of a pain in the ass, and I'd rather do it in watercolor if I can, because I can paint smaller in watercolor than acrylic. So this is a slab of polymer clay that was white that I baked in the oven with little hooks put into the top of it so I could attach chain. Same with this one. Both of them ended up being labyrinth related because it's me and I'm kind of predictable that way. And then I ended up painting these tiny portraits, and they're older and the sealant I used was not the best, so things kind of stick to them a little bit, which was really annoying. And I've grown as an artist a little bit since doing these, but I still keep them around because I like them, because they were experiments that turned out pretty well. This one's another one that's polymer clay that's painted, but I put it inside of a metal setting and then sealed it. So it just, but the texture of the actual polymer clay is all uneven. Oh well, adds character. And you can get these weird leaf chains at Michael's as well. Okay, this is one that I've been asked about actually quite a few times, which is my Goblin King necklace. And I sculpted this out of just white polymer clay with a little loop on the back. And if I had done it better, these would have been pointing in a little bit more. And then painted it with silver, black, white, gold paint so that it looks like it's made out of metal. And it looks better from a few feet away than it does up close, because then you can see it really does not look like it's made out of metal. The chain itself is actually not chain, it's just lots and lots of layers of thin thread all braided together. And it only sort of worked, which is why I've got a weird chain situation going on up here. But you win some, you lose some. I still like it. If I want another one, I might pay for it instead of trying to make it again, because it's kind of a pain in the ass. So there's that one that I get asked about a lot. There's this one, which was actually, I was cutting up some tights to use for like a crop top undershirt thing. And then I had a couple just sort of squares of the tight fabric that I kind of folded in half so they were in diamond or in triangular shapes, and took two of them and just kind of laid them and put knots at the ends. This is something I don't really know if I could replicate it if I tried. It was kind of an accident. And then tied some beads onto the corners. So it's kind of like a kerchief style necklace. It's cute, but it's weird, and I don't know if I could do it again. It's kind of something I stumbled into. Here was one that was kind of a weird one. So, I mean, the chain's obviously from Michaels. So I put a light bulb into a lamp, and the wattage was too low, and the lamp was too strong, and the light bulb broke very cleanly around the base. So all the innards just kind of broke off. It's kind of weird. So for some reason or another, I decided to make a necklace out of it. So I took polymer clay and just sort of laid it down and kept layering it in these weird shapes till I have this weird, almost Lovecraftian eldritch creature going on up here with the seed beads pressed into the clay and the little pearls, and then a hook at the top so I could string it on something. Again, total experiment. I didn't know what I was doing when I was making this. It's kind of weird and it's kind of cool, so I get a kick out of it. The last one on here is the oldest one, and when I was a sophomore in college, I started experimenting, and I had all this spare mat board around, and I had to use it for classes, and so I had an X-Acto knife and mat board. And so I was making things and then cutting out the mat board, punching a couple holes in it, and then stringing it onto things, and this is my logo. And I used to wear this necklace with some frequency a few years ago, but kind of lost interest because it seems a little too vain. And then Mod Podged it onto the mat board. And so this is just kind of an experiment. And it's a sturdy enough necklace for being on mat board, but a friend of mine was able to laser cut some of the necklaces that I did and put them in wood, and that always worked a little better. So this was another experiment. I don't know how much you'd want to replicate that, but my old cameo necklaces on my shop are made out of mat board because of it. Anyway, so those are just some of my jewelry ups and downs. Some work better than others, some look better than others, and some I like more or less. So if you're going to make jewelry, never expect it to turn out perfect the first time. Just keep trying, keep experimenting, do the things that you like to do, and see, because I have no plan when I'm doing this. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I'm making this shit up as I go along. So anyway, until next time, Darklings.